This is a demo of features released in Sinopia version 3.10 and 3.11, part of the early fall 2021 work cycle. And I'm Michelle Futornik, the Sinopia product owner. Right away on the homepage, you'll see a basically cleaner design, and you'll notice that we're now displaying the environment name on the homepage. Once you log in, you'll see that the version number has been moved to the bottom, but is always available. And the Sinopia logo is now hyperlinked back to the homepage in case you need to go back there. You'll also notice that we have a new actions menu, and that right now contains the load RDF and exports functions. And we've moved the search function of Sinopia resources to the top nav here, where it will always be accessible. Formerly, it was on its own tab. Resource templates and finding resource templates remain on its own tab. So let's look at search to see an improvement in search results. And that is these filters now have a select, deselect all option to make it easier to do your filtering. And you can also see that we've cleaned up the icons here that tell you what you can do with each resource to make them consistent with other parts of the application. So the things that you can do are preview with the eye icon, edit with the pencil icon, and copy with the copy icon. And notice that if you don't see a pencil, that's because you're not in a group that has permission to edit that resource. We've made some improvements to the preview, so you can preview even if you don't have edit permission. And when you preview now, you can also see the permissions. So if it's something where you wanted to get in touch with the owning group, or just check why you don't have permission to edit, you can see those permissions. And also on the preview now, from these search results, in addition to this form-based preview, which we had before, you can now choose from any of the RDF previews that we previously offered only in the editor. So even if you don't have edit permission, you could preview the RDF. Now let's go to the Resource Templates tab to see the icons for the actions you can perform on a template. Previously, you would click on the underlined name of a template to open it for cataloging. In other words, to open the form defined by that template. Now we're using an icon for that action so that all actions have icons. And so that action is this fill icon to actually catalog with the template. And then the pencil is to edit the template itself, the configuration of the template. And then again, the copy icon to copy a template. So let's, again, if you don't have the pencil, that's because you're not in a group that has permission to edit this thing, but you can always copy it or use it for cataloging. So I'm going to open one now to show some improvements in the actual editor. One improvement here in the left navigation is that you can now expand and collapse nested templates. So you could navigate to different parts of the template by expanding one of these nested resources and clicking directly on a field within it and navigating right there. And you'll also see now that when there's data in a field, we have this dot versus the check mark that used to be on the left, and that's making for a cleaner design. Another improvement here when you're editing is you have the preview still, and whereas before we had just different RDF previews, we now have the form-based preview that we saw from the search results. So you could use that as well from the editor. Another new feature is some context with lookups to Sinopia resources. So for fields where the lookup is going to Sinopia resources, we used to just show the label of the resource. So it was just one line. And now we're showing you a few more pieces of information, the same pieces of information you would see if you did a Sinopia search. Let me show you that with have instance will be more interesting than the administrative metadata. So you still see the label like before, but we also will show you the class, the owning group, and when it was last modified to help you distinguish if there's multiple search results that look similar. And another improvement has to do with editing the template itself. So back to the resource tab. If I wanted to change a template, I would use the pencil. And the improvement that we've made is that for an existing template, when you open it, the template ID is no longer editable. If you had tried to change the ID, that was leading to some conflicts internally in Sinopia and unexpected results. So if you do want to use a copy of a template, but make it a different template with a different ID, the way to do that is to use the copy button. And that'll bring up a new template, exact copy of this one, where you can change the ID to whatever you want. And if you happen to forget to change the ID and you try to save it, you'll get a warning. This is a feature that was already there, that you would get a warning, but in previous versions, you'd get a warning, but the template you were working on would have disappeared. So you get a warning, but now you can try again with creating a unique ID here. I'll just close this without saving and go on to the next feature, which is a new feature where any template could be set up with a field with the property rdfs label. And then when you're cataloging, if you fill this field in, this label will be used in search results, in the heading here when you're cataloging, and on the tab. So when you have multiple tabs open, you have a better sense of which things you have open and which things you're working on. So I want to show how this works with this demo template. This template has 3 fields. One is a literal with just any property, not a special property. The second field is a literal with the property BibFrame main title. This is one of the fields that Sinopia considers to be a title and thus shows as a label in search results. And then finally, this newly activated sort of field here. So if I just filled in this random field here with some data and I save this, you can see it's still just called label demo, which is the name of this template. Let's save it. And I'm going to try to search for that literal in Sinopia, which I should be able to do because we do index all literals. So here's the thing I just created, and you'll see here, there's no useful label. There's just the URI of the resource. So I'm going to go back to the editor here, and I'm going to give it a title. It's still just called label demo here in the header and the tab, which is the name of the template I'm on. But now that I've given it something that Sinopia considers a title, let me search again. And you can see here, this is the one I just did, it's October 20th. Now the thing that I put in the title is being used here as the label because Sinopia is set up to recognize certain properties as titles and put them in this label. Go back once more and show you the magic of this field with the RDFS label. So whatever goes here magically becomes the header and the name of the tab here. I'm going to save this. So now when I search, it is using that RDFS label. Even if there was a title, we're going to prefer the label over the title. So if you are a template owner, you can easily add this to your template. Let's go into the edit the template itself that I was using, the label demo template, and I'll show you what it looks like. You can also go to stage and find this there. It has 3 fields, and the third field was the one that was the magical label. And all it is a literal field with the property RDFS label. So you could add that to any of your templates. It doesn't matter where in the template it is. It doesn't have to be at the bottom or the top. But as long as that field is there and someone fills in that label field, we'll treat it in that special way. And finally, we have one new button. If you are looking at a resource of type BibFrame instance, and if you're in a group that has this permission to export things to your local catalog, then when you edit the resource or even when you preview it, you'll see this new export to catalog button. And we have a separate video coming that's going to show our progress on that, what happens in the back end when you click export to catalog and the integration with a library's local ILS. So that will be coming. That concludes our demo, but as always, please see help.sinopia.io and look at the release notes for more details on what I've shared here today.